nowadays in this age and world, there are so many people that are giving lectures and so many people are giving knowledge. Then people like us who cannot filter the knowledge that's proper, that's authentic, that can be attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, and the one that someone kind of customized it to pass their own message. So how can you tell an intellectual who is authentic plus who is not authentic but is only giving his views, somehow sweeten it to make it like he's giving the right, correct knowledge?
No.
Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think, yarhamakallah, I think one of the problems that we're facing nowadays because of the media is that we have so many speakers, not ulama, they're not really scholars, but they're speakers and they can speak well. The language or the style they deliver, the content could be amazing, and it could attract the attention of the people. My suggestion, and this is the advice that my teachers have given me before, is that if you want to study Islam, you have to study Islam from someone that you trust, someone that that he has the knowledge. I wouldn't say that YouTube or Facebook, I wouldn't say that should be your main source for knowledge, but because there's no control, right? I mean, anybody can post anything on YouTube, but that doesn't mean that we should go and listen to what they're saying. I think when it comes to the deen, we have to understand that this is our capital investment. This is the most important thing in your life. And you wouldn't, if you are sick, for example, you wouldn't just go to the YouTube and get, an advice from someone and tell you to take, medicine, and then, of course, we all know that when it comes to your physical well-being, you will go to the best doctor, right? You won't go to anyone. But the problem is nowadays, when it comes to those things, when it comes to pursuing worldly affairs, we go to the best schools, we go to the best doctors. When it comes to the deen, we just go to the YouTube, or we want to listen to maybe 10 minutes advice, and we are satisfied with that. And that's not really the way of even the Sahaba. Look at the story of Salman al-Farisi. His journey to seek the truth and to discover Islam is actually a story that's worth knowing. He mentions his story that even when he was in the process of seeking the guidance, he came to Syria and he asked the people of Syria about the most knowledgeable person amongst them. He came to a Christian group and he said, I want to know who is the most knowledgeable person amongst you. And then they will refer to that person, and then he would go and study with them. Not only the most knowledgeable, he would say the one who also has the best character or akhlaq. So he was looking for two things, the knowledge and also the character of the one who is preaching the knowledge. So the point here is that Salman radiallahu anhu, at the end Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to Islam. He would meet with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. But the one lesson that we learn from his story is that he was serious about seeking knowledge from its authentic source, not just from random people. So to answer your question, I would say that of course we all like to visit YouTube or or some websites, but when it comes to the deen, you must have a sheikh. And nowadays, subhanallah, you find some of the youth, they study one or two books and they say, Hum rijal wa nahnu rijal. They say Abu Hanifa was a man, we are also men. You compare yourself to Abu Hanifa, to Shafi'i, you just study 2 books or 3 books. And these scholars have spent 40 years or 50 years of learning the deen. And then that kind of arrogance actually exists. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. In order for us to benefit from what we hear and what we learn, you must have a sheikh. People who have the sheikh, wallahi, the knowledge they receive has more barakah than those who just go back and forth. Today they come to this masjid, they listen to one sheikh. Tomorrow they go to another masjid, they listen to another sheikh. And then at the end, the knowledge doesn't produce anything. Because they don't have, a source. They don't have a foundation to go back to. So you must have a sheikh. And you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be shy, in having a sheikh. Like anybody that you trust, any sheikh. Any sheikh that you trust, that should be your sheikh. Whether he's, lives with you locally or you, contact with him over the phone, but that person should be your main source. But before you do that, you have to do your homework. You have to select the best of those sheikh. Can I get that, brother, first, and then?
I just want to know, like, for instance, you talked about Imam Ghazali. You choose many times in your speech Imam Ghazali. And I believe a lot of people don't know Imam Ghazali. One of his best books that are the most expensive book you talked about, which is Ihya Ulum al-Din, was the most expensive book. So we know that he used to be a scholar. He used to be teaching in a college or something like that. Then he became a Sufi. You did not mention the word Sufi. That means he wanted to become purified himself. So the Sufi, now what we hear in my community, whenever they hear Sufi, they hate more than Christianity. They think the person is lost in it, the person doesn't know nothing. And now this young man talk about who you Jews. These people we call Sufi, they have a sheikh after sheikh after sheikh after sheikh. So I was wondering what's going on in here. I just want to clarify for us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I've seen also, like, when some people talk about the word Sufi, or they want to critique the Sufi, some of them they address in a simplistic manner, which is not actually the right thing. Sufi is a general term, especially in those days during the time of Ghazali. The Sufi was like anybody who was pursuing, tazkiyah, the purification of the soul. That would be a Sufi. Of course, we understand that when it comes to Sufi, there are people who don't have enough knowledge and they exaggerate in their Sufism, like Hallaj and many other people. And because even Ghazali himself, in the book Deliverance from Error, he criticizes some of the things that he has seen within the Sufis, not among the learned ones, but among the ignorant ones. Because Ghazali talks about that, the Sharia has two aspects, the inward and the outward. And a person could be a Sufi who is following the Sunnah if he is balancing between the two. It could be a Sufi following the Sunnah. The word Sufi not as a group, but as the intention to purify yourself. So don't misunderstand me. That's what I mean in this context. The balance is actually having between the inward and the outward. If people have that balance, they focus on their inner souls and they purify themselves, and also they do the outward aspect of the Sharia, then those people, most of the times, they are in line with the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. What happens is that sometimes the Sufi, some of them, they disregard the outward aspect of the Sharia. Like, for example, they don't pray. And they say that this person has attained the level of certainty or yaqeen, so that the salah is not an obligation upon that person, or he doesn't have to pray salah with the congregation. His ruh is praying the salah in the haram. Those kind of things, it is something that's strange, and it's something that even Imam Ghazali, many other scholars, they criticize and they don't approve. So the point again here is that as long as the person is keeping the balance between the inward aspect of the Sharia and the outward aspect of the Sharia, that's all it's needed. That's why Imam Malik, in one of his statements, he said that if a person just focuses on the inner, side of his being, and he disregards the outward aspect, he said that's a Siddiq, meaning that you're totally rejecting the Sharia. So that balance is required. And Imam al-Ghazali, what he was looking for was to have that balance. He already had the outward aspect of the Sharia. He was already a scholar. He already, he has written many fiqh books before he took the journey to write the Ihya Ulum al-Din. So For him, it was personal. For him, it was finding the balance between the inner aspect of the Sharia and also the outward aspect of the Sharia. Again, I agree with you that when people talk about Sufi, they generalize. It's not a good thing. When we talk about Sufi, we have to understand which context are you talking about. You know, even the term Sufi within the Islamic history, each century had a specific meaning. You see, nowadays the kind of Sufis that we see, you know, they were different than the Sufis during the time of Imam al-Ghazali and so forth. So we have to, when we talk about the Sufis, we have to know that what kind of Sufi are you talking about, and who are they, and which group are you referring to? And at the end of the day, وَخَيْرَ الْهَدِي هَدِي مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم, the best guidance is the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, if you look Imam al-Qayyim, some people think that Imam al-Qayyim is also Sufi. Why? Because he talks about the tazkiyah. Or some people even say that Ibn Taymiyyah was a Sufi. Sufi in the sense that he was focusing on purifying himself. So using that word to describe Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, it is fine as long as you mean it that this is a purification of the soul, not as Ibn Taymiyyah who was seeking, you know, help from the awliya or from someone else. That's not what the Sufi means when you're talking about those scholars who combine the inner aspect of the Sharia and also the outer aspect of the Sharia.
Well, you just described the way I wanted, because many people don't know a lot about Islam, especially young people who live in Western society. They just jump in and jump in. The way we used to know in Islam, we never just attended a muhadara. Muhadara is somebody who needs muhadara. Somebody who has the knowledge needs the muhadara. But the reality, when you need the knowledge exactly, you have to sit down in the masjid, have a share, finish this book after book after book after book. That's the only time. For instance, in Somalia, how did they survive from Kenya is a Christian country, Ethiopia? How did they survive? Because they had a halakha, they had a mashahid, they had a sheikh after book after book after book. That's the only way they survive. Not only just people come and give a lecture and use a few words from the Quran, a few words from the hadith, just done like that. And I've seen a lot of messages. Even there's a sheikh in here in this message. He make, you know, some people they sit, they just like to listen. But the real knowledge is where you have to sit and gain the knowledge, you know, gain the knowledge from the sheikh, read the book, what he's reading. And I am so glad that you described the right way, and Jazakallah khairan.
I think, you know, in addition to what you say, if you look at the Islamic history, you know, masjid was actually the main source for the knowledge. And people used to have shuyukh. They will go to the sheikh for language, they will go to that sheikh for tafsir, they will go to that sheikh for hadith and so forth. And they will master each subject. That's why we had so many great scholars. The paradox nowadays is that we have many universities, Islamic universities, but we have less scholars. Think about it. We have many Islamic universities, we have less scholars. Although the opposite is supposed to be the right. That when we have many Islamic universities, they're supposed to produce great scholars. But that's not happening. Why? Because the curriculum and the way they teach is not actually the way that our ulama in the past have learned. You know, in the university, you go there for 4 years, you study, you know, hadith, maybe a few books in Arabic, you know, the history. You take each subject some. At the end of the day, you have the certificate, but you didn't master the fiqh, you didn't master the language, you didn't master the tafsir. You just know, you have just shallow information or knowledge. And then you come to the people and you say that I'm a mufti or I'm a, you know, scholar. This is also a problem we are facing nowadays, but Allahu musta'an. Your last question.
I'll kind of add something that pertains to that subject. I mean, me embracing Islam and the lack of English knowledge, you know, there's a lot of shield, and I respect everybody for their efforts and things like that, but it's hard to obtain, like, because when you're a new Muslim, you have a lot of momentum. You want to learn how to pray. You don't want to go to a YouTube video. You want to learn from an actual human being so that you get the correct teaching. but there's a lack of, and then there's a lot of immaturity. It's like there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of basically just a lot of tests that the new Muslim goes through, or that anybody who just wants to learn the deen, like the youth that want to come to the masjid. There's a generational gap because like there's like a generational gap, and then they want to come to the masjid, but they feel like they're not welcome, and then there's like a lack of understanding the culture here, like understanding like the layout here, and then like that can kind of cause somebody to like shy away. So who do we go to if we can't really learn from, like we can watch YouTube and we feel better, but at the end of the day that's emotion. That's not helping me in my action. That's not like, you know what I mean? And like who do we go to? Because when we go, like let's say I go to Dal Farouk, right? And I'm looking on the website to try to sign up for a mahad or something like that, right? And you call the person, and then he gives you somebody else's number, and then the person that they give you, they're not answering the phone. So you go to that place, and then you try to talk to that person, and that person doesn't really want to talk to you. He's just really in this position, and it's like you really can't. It's like, and then you go all over. You go wherever there is. You're going for it. You want it, and it's like, where do we go if we don't have it? Where do we go? We can't. I speak English. A lot of people. Everybody here speaks English, and it's like, where do we go if a lot of Shia are refusing to speak English? That have the knowledge. They're world renowned. They have the knowledge. Why don't they speak? Why won't they help the people? The people are like, why won't they help? Like, why won't they help like my kids learn? Why? Like, where can we bring our kids? Where can I bring anything? Like, how can I excel in Islam? How can I get like success? How can I be muflihun? How can I obtain all of these things that the Quran talks about? If there's lack of like concern for what's going on in the environment here, where do I go to? I don't want to go on YouTube. I want to be real. I want live in the flesh, knowledge right here, action right here. I want to see it, but I don't know where to go. I'm running around. So like how do I decipher who's a sheikh if everybody's sheikh? Like when we're doing what we're supposed to do, right? You'll say you have your thobe or your pants are above the ankles. You have a lihya or you don't have lihya, but you have good niyyah and somebody sees you praying. The bare minimum. They see you doing the bare minimum, and then they call you sheikh. So when they dilute that term, how does somebody that's new or somebody that wants to come home to Islam, how do we decipher what's what if we don't know? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like a lot, but hey, forgive me, but
I understand. May Allah give all of us success and give us the tawfiq, inshallah. You mentioned, a good point, and I think the purpose of Journey of ILM is also to welcome people like you to study and meet with teachers, with Sheikh like Sheikh Ukaisha and Mufti Munir. I don't consider myself Sheikh, so don't call me Sheikh. Okay, I'm not a Sheikh. I'm your brother. So just sharing with you, some of the notes that I've learned from my teachers. I know that in Minnesota there is we don't have many shiuch that speak English, and that could be an obstacle for those who want to pursue the Islamic knowledge. But I think since mashallah we have building blocks here. Not only you carry the building blocks. Inshallah. So I think this should be a reminder, inshallah, for all of us to really care about the new Muslim brothers and at least establish an institution or weekend school that aims to teach the English-speaking brothers and sisters, because mashallah, these brothers, they made the sacrifice, they've studied the deen, they came to the right path. It is our responsibility to welcome them and to teach them. And as the brother said, when someone is new to the deen, you cannot differentiate who is the real sheikh and who is just pretending to be the sheikh. So, but it is our responsibility, first and foremost, to really call the shuyukh, those who are qualified to be shuyukh. You call everyone sheikh, then you have a new Muslim who converts to Islam. He may think that everybody is a sheikh, and he's the only one who's not a sheikh. And it's so I think even us as students of knowledge, we should eliminate using that word, within us. Just use the sheikh for the real sheikh. Because what's confusing people nowadays is this term has become like, everybody is entitled to sheikh. Everybody is saying the sheikh, 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 sheikh. That's also part of the confusion. So my advice to myself and to everyone, inshallah, is that we should, eliminate using that word, and we should call the sheikh only the real sheikh, those who have the knowledge and also the good akhlaq and the good manners. If you don't mind, inshallah, may I speak with you after Isha, and we can talk about your genuine concerns and see how we can, help you, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Any other questions before we conclude? Alaykum salam.
I think a little bit deep. I think the brother earlier was mentioning, like the way we learn back home, the sheikh, they sit down and we learn books like that. Somebody who's really serious, I think they can do that, But I think the youth who are living here, without changing anything, I think maybe the way of teaching has to be a little bit changed, without changing anything from the Quran or anything from Sunnah. But I think the way of teaching method, I think it has to be changed a little bit, so that the youth who are living here, who grew up in this country, can come and learn the knowledge. I don't think they will come and sit down the way we do it back home. Somebody who's really, really serious can only do that. So I think the way of teaching, the way of you teach has to be changed a little bit.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we can always, change the methodology or the way we teach based on the, the society or the needs. And we can have a classroom, but still we should focus on the importance of the teacher and the sheikh who is teaching the subject. The problem nowadays is that when it comes to the Islamic subjects, and you would see this, it's prevalent in the Islamic schools as well, they will select anybody to teach the Islamic studies. When they're looking for an English teacher, they have to look for his qualifications. If they're looking for someone who's teaching, history, they have to look for the qualification. When it comes to Islamic studies, anybody who's praying in the masjid, mashallah, has a beard or lihya, they would say, okay, come and teach Islam. It's part of the problem, that we are, and believe me, these kids or the youth, they have so many questions, and it's not, I would say even some of those questions, it's not my capacity to answer those. I have to refer those to the real shaykh, those who have, the deep knowledge. So what you said is actually right, but when we change in the methodology, if we have a setting of classrooms, then we should select the best, the best person to teach the class. We shouldn't just, invite anybody and let that person teach. Because remember that, the role of the teacher is like a doctor who's giving a medicine. When someone is new to the class and you give them the wrong medicine and they go astray, you will be responsible for that. For the rest of anything they do mistakenly, you will be responsible for it. You see, so again, we have to perfect, the method, and also we have to find the best people to teach Islam. So, Jazakallah khair. Yes.
How do you stay hungry and wanting to learn and not losing motivation to learn? You know what I mean? Like, just every time I start something, I wouldn't say my niyah is there, but I just lose motivation. So
Yes, well, actually, that's why you need to have a teacher. If you have a YouTube won't call you, right? But if you have a teacher, the teacher would keep in touch with you. Say, hey, Hassan, you didn't come to the masjid. Can we go for lunch? Can we do? So the teacher will motivate you, will give you the encouragement to continue. That's why even my teachers. I remember even Sheikh Hatim, and sometimes he would call me and say that, where are you? I would say that I'm somewhere. He said, let's meet today and do some readings. He used to do that, So if you have a teacher who really cares about you, and you need to find a teacher who is compassionate, a teacher who is kind, not like any teacher who would, son. If you have a teacher who cares about you, inshallah, he will help you to stay consistent in the path of seeking knowledge. We have a few questions that came from the sisters. I will only take one that's pertaining to the subject. Maybe we delay this to the other shiur. It's out of there. This subject, the question says, what subject in Islam should a beginner start with? What subject? I would say that, a beginner should start with the Quran. Learn the Quran, learn the meaning of the Quran. And when you're learning the Quran, make sure that you select the teacher who knows the Quran and the meanings of the Quran. Especially if you are an adult who is seeking knowledge. If you want to start seeking knowledge, start with the Quran. And you must have a teacher who understands the meaning of the Quran. So that way when you memorize, if you have any questions on the certain ayat, the teacher would be able to clarify or explain. You see, so it's important to start with the Quran. The reason I'm saying this is, I've seen many people, they start, the knowledge by reading, different books. They start, reading, different books by scholars. And they spend like 5 or 6 years just, doing one book, finishing and then doing another book. But they have no idea. I would say that they don't have a basic foundations on the meanings of the Quran. If you spend your time just reading the book of another scholar, it's a good thing. But you have to prioritize your steps. So the first step should be learn the meanings of the Quran, because that's the source. Even when you read a book, that sheikh, that author, he based his evidence from the Quran. The problem nowadays is that you find students of knowledge, they know certain books and they can quote a statement of scholars. Sheikh so-and-so said this, Sheikh so-and-so said this. But Islam is not about what the Sheikh said. Islam is قال الله قال الرسول. It's about what Allah says and what His Messenger say. So you must have a direct access to the Quran. And always you have to select a teacher who would take you to the Quran, a teacher who would take you to the Sunnah. Not a teacher who will make you stop on his statement. Or a teacher will make you stop on just the books. Because the goal is not just learning the books, the goal is to go beyond the books and go to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes. Is it time for Isha? Any more 10 moments? 10 moments? Okay.
We have a culture in the Somali community that has followed us for generations and generation. We are a society of Hifad, Hifdul Quran. So a long time ago, people used to hit the Quran. Then when they grow old, they used to go seek the translation of the Quran somewhere. But nowadays, we don't have that opportunity. So you will see every city and every country that you go, you will find thousands of Somalis who are half the Quran. But you will not even find 7 who knows the meaning of the Quran. Not even the teachers who are teaching the Quran. So, you cannot become a good Muslim by just knowing, memorizing the Quran. So the kids are wasting time memorizing the Quran, 5 years, 6 years. If you ask him, what does Surah An-Nas says? It's like normal products. We don't even know. It might not even have a meaning.
Yes, you're right.
How can we change that culture of having just preferred without knowledge. I call them preferred without knowledge. People, they know the Quran, so it was like some kind of memorizing the Quran was some kind of a sacred prestige. Like my son is half the Quran, so it was kind of like an honor, but not really knowledge. So that's why we don't have a lot of knowledge, because it's not even in our culture to know the meaning of the Quran.
I think, maybe back home in Somalia or in Africa in general, just having hufad would be something great. But I think in this country, what is, the most important thing for us is to teach our children what they are memorizing, to teach them the meanings. Just a person to become a hafid won't stop him doing something bad. If just becoming a hafid won't stop a person to sell drugs. Seriously. There are some hufad who have memorized the Quran, but now they're doing all kind of bad things. So just memorizing the Quran doesn't mean that this person will be righteous for the rest of his life or her life. What can protect this young generation is if we teach them the meanings of the Quran. The meaning. If they know one surah and they know the meaning of it, if they digest, if they internalize the meaning of those surahs, then it will help them. They would have a knowledge that they can relate to. One thing I want to tell you is that understanding the Quran is not easy. It's a lifetime commitment. And if you think that Quran is, you can understand the Quran in 2 or 3 years, no. Quran is a lifetime. Even when you reach at the age of 60 or 70, still the Quran will give you new meanings. So don't ever think that this Quran that we have is a simple book. It's simple to memorize. It's easy to memorize, but to understand and to do what the Quran is asking, it's really hard. Wallahi. Nowadays we open the Quran and we say, the Quran is talking about the kuffar. The Quran is not about me. The Quran is just bad people, not about me. That's the attitude. That's the approach, right? But the Quran is calling us to change. The Quran is talking to us primarily. You as a Muslim, you're reading the Quran, but what have you done to change yourself? You just read the Quran every day, but you don't change yourself. So the other thing I would say, that in order for us to understand the meaning of the Quran, we have to understand the seerah of the Prophet, the life of the Prophet. Why? Because you look at the first surah in the book, in the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah. One was revealed in Mecca and the other one was revealed in Medina. What's the gap between this? Almost maybe 10 years. And now you're just reading Fatiha, then you start Surah Al-Baqarah. If you don't understand how Surah Al-Baqarah is related to Surah Al-Fatiha, how Surah Al-Imran is related to Surah Al-Baqarah, how Nisa is related to Al-Imran, and so forth. If you don't understand the coherence of the Quran, then you won't be able to make sense of what the Quran is actually teaching in its comprehensive message. You understand? So knowing the seerah of the Prophet it's a good method to understand the meaning of the Quran. If a non-Muslim comes to me now and say that I want to know Islam, I won't give that person the copy of a Quran. What I would say is that I would find the best book about the seerah of the Prophet. I would say first, this is a prerequisite to the Quran. Take this, the life of the Prophet, read his struggles in Mecca, his struggles in Medina. 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina. Go read that. Once you have that, the picture of 13 years in Medina, 10 years 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina, you have 23 years of the life of the Prophet, you have that in the back of your mind. Now I can give you the Quran. You can understand what the Quran is saying. You understand? So the point here is that we produce hufaz, but we give less emphasis on the meanings. So I would, inshallah ta'ala, invite everyone who's teaching the Quran, make sure that when you teach the children, you teach them the basic meanings of the Quran. And that's actually what we're doing now in our state. It's part of the curriculum. When the kids are memorizing the Quran, they will take tafsir mawdu'i, which is a thematic tafsir of the Quran. It doesn't go to the details, but it talks about the background of the surah, when it was revealed, the lesson that we can learn, and so forth. You teach that to the children, if you have high schoolers or college students, then you go to the deep meanings of the Quran, because at the end of the day, the Quran, the goal is not just memorization. What is the goal of the Quran? To implement, right? To practice. That's the goal. We go 3 stages: memorization, understanding, and implementation. We just stop at the memorization. We don't go to the understanding. We don't go to the implementations. Although the application is the most important thing in the Quran. Jazakallah khair. I think it's time for Isha now. 2 more minutes, inshallah.
Any more questions before we wrap up, inshallah?
I would just like to add a little comment. I came across
Come here, please. We want everybody to hear your comment. Come here, Sheikh. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I would like to just add that I came across a Western teacher that once told me that you should have, an inch of knowledge? No, a mile long but an inch deep, which really doesn't make sense, because all he's saying is that you should just pretty much go through all the subjects and just learn a little here, a little there, and not really go into the deep understanding of the subject. But I kept on going back to him and kept on saying, why not make it a mile deep and an inch long, so therefore I could really understand the subject that I'm learning or the material. But me and him had a difficult time. But Jazakallah.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, that was a good comment. So again, we go back to the Islamic way, and when you learn something, you have to go to the deep. Don't just stay at the surface, but go deep down to the subject. Jazakallah khair.